Security! Remove this vagrant immediately! Rebecca Miller snatched the sanitizer bottle from her desk. Without warning, she sprayed it directly into David Thompson's face. David flinched, wiping his eyes. The antiseptic burned. "You're contaminating our lobby!" Rebecca's voice dripped with disgust. She jabbed her manicured finger toward the exit like he was vermin. David hadn't even spoken a word. Guests froze in horror. A businessman's coffee cup trembled in his hand. A young woman's phone captured everything, her mouth agape. Security Chief Steve Wilson stormed forward, hand on his radio. "Sir, you need to leave, now." David's voice stayed impossibly calm despite the stinging. "I have a reservation." Rebecca's laugh was cruel, theatrical. "Sure you do, sweetie." The marble lobby buzzed with shocked whispers and clicking cameras. The sanitizer's sharp smell hung in the air like evidence. Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone knew who you really were? The sanitizer still stung David's eyes as Rebecca Miller circled him like a predator. Her heels clicked against marble with each deliberate step. "Look at this," she announced to the growing crowd. "Another scammer trying to con his way into our penthouse suites." David pulled a handkerchief from his jacket pocket, dabbing his face with quiet dignity. The gesture revealed a flash of platinum, his American Express black card, before disappearing back into the expensive wool. "I'm not trying to con anyone," David said evenly. "I have a confirmed reservation under Thompson." Rebecca's eyes rolled so hard they nearly disappeared. "Thompson? How original." She turned to the audience like a performer. "They always use generic American names." A hotel guest shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned in closer, phones raised. Janet Davis, the assistant manager, materialized at Rebecca's side. Her smile was predatory. "What seems to be the problem here?" "This gentleman," Rebecca emphasized the word with dripping sarcasm, "claims he belongs in our hotel." "Look at him, Janet. Does he look like our typical clientele?" David's phone buzzed. The screen briefly displayed board meeting reminder, 3 p.m. He silenced it with practiced calm. "Sir," Janet's voice carried false concern. "Perhaps you're confused about your hotel? There's a Motel 6 about 3 miles down." "I'm not confused." David's tone remained steady. "My reservation confirmation is right here." He reached for his phone again. Rebecca immediately stepped back, hand flying to her chest in theatrical alarm. "Janet!" "He's reaching for something." The lobby tensed. A child tugged his mother's sleeve, sensing danger without understanding why. Steve Wilson materialized beside them, his security badge catching the chandelier light. "Sir, I need you to keep your hands visible." David slowly raised both palms. "I was reaching for my phone to show my confirmation email." "Sure you were," Rebecca muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's what they all say." A woman near the concierge desk began live streaming on Instagram. Her whispered commentary floated across the marble expanse. "This is insane, you guys. They're treating this man like a criminal for literally existing in their lobby." The viewer count climbed rapidly. 12 viewers, 25, 53. David noticed the stream but said nothing. His expression remained unreadable. "Ma'am," he addressed Rebecca directly, "I understand there may be confusion. Could we perhaps resolve this at the front desk? Privately?" Rebecca's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Privately? So you can spin some sob story about discrimination." She turned to her growing audience. "This is exactly how they operate, folks. They create scenes, then cry victim when decent people protect themselves." A first-class airline boarding pass peeked from David's jacket pocket Delta One, ATL to LAX. Well, the tiny detail went unnoticed except by the Instagram live streamer, whose camera caught everything. "Oh my God," she whispered to her phone. "Did you guys see that ticket?" This doesn't add up. Janet Davis stepped closer to Rebecca, their alliance solidifying. "Should I call the police?" "This feels like a potential threat situation." "Threat?" David's eyebrows rose slightly. "I've made no threats." "Your presence here is threat enough," Rebecca snapped. "Our guests deserve to feel safe." The businessman who'd been drinking coffee finally spoke up. "Excuse me, but this seems excessive. The man just wants to check in." Rebecca whirled on him. "Sir, with respect, you don't understand the security challenges we face daily. People like this," she gestured dismissively at David, "they target luxury establishments specifically." David's watch, a subtle Patek Philippe, caught the light as he checked the time. Another small detail, another piece of a puzzle no one was assembling yet. The Instagram stream hit 100 viewers. Comments flooded in. "This is discrimination, pure and simple. Why won't they just check his reservation? Something's not right here." Steve Wilson's radio crackled. "Wilson, report status." He keyed the mic without breaking eye contact with David. "Potential trespassing situation in main lobby. Individual refusing to leave premises." "I haven't refused anything," David said quietly. "I've simply asked to check in." Rebecca pulled out her phone, holding it like a weapon. "I'm documenting everything for our legal team. This is what harassment looks like, people. They come in here, make demands, then claim discrimination when we protect our business." The crowd had grown to nearly 20 people. Some defended David in hushed whispers. Others nodded along with Rebecca's performance. David remained perfectly still in the center of it all, a calm eye in the gathering storm. His phone buzzed again. This time, the screen showed a text from Michael Brown, GM. David's thumb hovered over the message but didn't open it. Not yet. The tension in the lobby had reached a breaking point. Every face was turned toward the unfolding drama. The live stream viewer count continued climbing. And David Thompson simply stood there, watching it all unfold with the patience of a man who held cards nobody knew existed. The Instagram live stream hit 500 viewers when Steve Wilson decided to end the standoff. "Sir, I'm giving you one final opportunity to leave voluntarily." His hand moved deliberately to his radio. "After that, we involve the police." David nodded calmly. "I understand your position, but I'd like to speak with your general manager first." Rebecca's laugh could have shattered crystal. "Michael Brown doesn't waste time with people like you. He's busy running a real business." The crowd pressed closer. Phones multiplied like digital vultures. The young live streamer adjusted her angle, catching everything in crisp HD. "This is absolutely wild," she whispered to her audience. "The man literally just wants to check into a hotel, and they're treating him like he's planning a heist." Janet Davis stepped forward, her smile razor-thin. "Sir, you're creating a disturbance." "Our guests are becoming uncomfortable." "I notice I'm not the one shouting," David observed quietly. His calm response only inflamed Rebecca further. She turned to the assembled crowd like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is textbook manipulation. Notice how he stays calm? It's calculated. They train for this." An elderly woman near the elevator frowned. "Train for what exactly?" "Scamming," Rebecca declared. "They study our protocols, learn our weaknesses, then exploit our politeness against us." Steve Wilson's radio crackled again. "Wilson, ETA on resolution?" 3 minutes or we're calling HCPD, he responded, eyes locked on David. The live stream comments exploded. "Record everything. This hotel is about to get sued. Where is the manager? Somebody needs to help this man." David checked his watch, the subtle Patek Philippe catching light again. The gesture was casual, but the live streamer's camera captured the expensive timepiece clearly. "Guys, look at his watch," she whispered urgently. "That's like a $50,000 watch. Something is seriously wrong with this picture." Her viewer count hit 1,000 and climbing. Rebecca noticed the growing online audience and played to it shamelessly. "This is what we deal with every day, folks." They dress up, put on expensive accessories, probably fake, and try to intimidate honest working people. David's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Janet Davis pulled out her own phone, recording from a different angle. "I'm documenting everything for legal protection." These situations always turn into lawsuits. "Smart," Rebecca agreed loudly. "They'll claim we discriminated, file complaints, demand settlements." "It's a whole industry," The businessman who'd defended David earlier stepped closer. "This is getting ridiculous. Just check his reservation." "We don't negotiate with scammers," Rebecca snapped. Steve Wilson moved behind David, effectively boxing him in. "Sir, you're surrounded by witnesses. If you resist removal, it becomes criminal trespass." David turned slowly, taking in the circle of faces. Hotel staff, security guests, cameras, everyone waiting for his next move. "I'm not resisting anything," he said clearly. "I'm simply standing here." His phone buzzed. The screen showed Michael Brown, GM, again. Then another text from Lisa Anderson, corporate. David glanced at both notifications but made no move to answer. The restraint was almost supernatural. Rebecca sensed victory. Her voice rose triumphantly. "See how they always have excuses? Always have someone to call? It's all part of the con." The live streamer's audience had grown to 1,500. Local news blogger at HTX News Now joined the stream, immediately boosting visibility. "Holy shit," the live streamer breathed, reading comments. "Channel 2 News is watching. This is going viral." Steve Wilson heard her and stiffened. "Ma'am, please stop recording." "It's a public space," she replied firmly. "First Amendment rights." Rebecca's confidence wavered slightly. Viral videos meant corporate attention. Corporate attention meant uncomfortable questions. But she'd gone too far to back down now. "Fine," she declared. "Let everyone see what we deal with." This is what discrimination actually looks like. Hardworking Americans being harassed by people who think they can intimidate their way into anything. David's phone buzzed a third time. "Emergency board meeting, 4 p.m. His thumb hovered over the notification. "See?" Rebecca pointed at his phone. "Always with the important calls." Probably calling his lawyer already. The crowd murmured. Some looked skeptical now. The details weren't adding up: the expensive watch, the first-class boarding pass, the calm demeanor under extreme pressure. Steve Wilson keyed his radio. "Dispatch, requesting HCPD unit to Grandview Grand, main lobby. Trespassing situation." "Copy that, Wilson. Unit en route. ETA 4 minutes." The announcement sent a shock through the crowd. This had escalated beyond public embarrassment into potential criminal charges. David closed his eyes briefly, as if making a difficult decision. When he opened them, something had changed. "Before the police arrive," he said quietly, "I'd like to make one phone call." Rebecca threw her hands up theatrically. "Of course!" The mysterious phone call. "Let me guess, your lawyer? Your civil rights organization? Your social media manager?" David pulled out his phone with deliberate slowness. Every eye in the lobby followed the movement. "Actually," he said, finger hovering over a contact, "I'm calling the owner." Rebecca's laughter was vicious. "The owner? Of what, your little scam operation?" David's finger touched the screen. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a familiar voice answered, and in that moment, everything changed. "Michael, this is David Thompson. I'm standing in the lobby of our flagship property, and I need you down here immediately." The words hung in the air like a dropped bomb. Rebecca Miller's laughter died in her throat. Her eyes darted between David's phone and his face, confusion replacing confidence. "Who did he just call Michael?" someone whispered. The live streamer's camera zoomed in on David's expression. 1,500 viewers became 2,000. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read. "Michael Brown here," came the voice from David's phone, clear enough for nearby guests to hear. "Sir, is everything all right?" "I wasn't expecting—" "Everything is not all right," David interrupted calmly. "Your front desk manager just sprayed sanitizer in my face and called me a vagrant. Your security chief is preparing to have me arrested, and your assistant manager believes I'm running some kind of scam operation." Dead silence. Even the elevator music seemed to stop. Rebecca's face had gone white. Steve Wilson's hand froze on his radio. Janet Davis took an unconscious step backward. "Sir," Michael Brown's voice carried confusion through the phone speaker. "Could you repeat that?" "Someone sprayed—" David reached into his jacket with deliberate precision. Rebecca flinched, but instead of a weapon, he withdrew a business card. Ivory white. embossed gold lettering. Simple, elegant, devastating. He held it up for the nearest camera. David Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, Grandview, Luxury Hotels and Resorts. The live streamer's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my actual God." 2,000 viewers became 3,000. The comment section exploded. "No fucking way. He's the CEO? They're so fired. This is insane." Rebecca Miller stared at the business card like it was written in a foreign language. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Steve Wilson's radio slipped from his nerveless fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Janet Davis gripped the reception counter for support, her knuckles white. The entire lobby held its breath. David spoke into the phone again, his voice carrying the quiet authority of absolute power. "Michael, I need you in this lobby in 60 seconds. Bring Lisa from HR. Bring our legal counsel if they're available." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson. I had no idea you were—" 60 seconds, David repeated, and ended the call. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Rebecca found her voice first, though it cracked with panic. This has to be fake. Anyone can print business cards. This is part of the scam." But her words lacked conviction. The expensive watch wasn't fake. The first-class boarding pass wasn't fake. The platinum credit card wasn't fake. And the phone call to Michael Brown, their general manager, had been very, very real. David pocketed his phone and looked directly at Rebecca. When he spoke, his voice carried new weight. "Ms. Miller, in the 18 months since I purchased this property, I've visited dozens of our locations. I've stayed in our hotels, eaten in our restaurants, used our services, always quietly, always observing." Rebecca's breathing became shallow. "I've seen excellent hospitality. I've seen minor problems that needed correction, but I have never in 23 properties across 6 states seen anything like what I've witnessed here today." The live stream hit 4,000 viewers. Local news alerts started pinging across Houston phones. Steve Wilson bent to retrieve his radio with shaking hands. David continued, his tone remaining conversational despite the devastation in his words. "This hotel generates $276 million in annual revenue. 23% of our corporate profits flow through this single location. Numbers. Real, specific, devastating numbers that no scammer could fake. Our insurance policies contain strict anti-discrimination clauses. Federal civil rights violations void coverage entirely. The potential liability for today's incident, captured on multiple cameras and broadcast live to thousands of viewers, exceeds $50 million. Janet Davis made a small, wounded sound. The elevator chimed. Michael Brown emerged at a dead run, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Behind him, a woman in a sharp business suit, presumably Lisa from HR, struggled to keep pace in heels. They spotted David immediately. Michael's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, abject terror. "Mr. Thompson," he breathed, approaching like a man walking to his execution. "Sir, I am so profoundly sorry. I had no idea you were in the building. If I had known—" "If you had known, your staff would have behaved professionally," David finished quietly. "The question is, why they don't behave professionally when they think no one important is watching." Michael Brown looked like he might vomit. Lisa Anderson introduced herself with visible nervousness. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Lisa Anderson, corporate HR. We need to discuss immediate remediation procedures." "We will," David agreed. "But first, I believe Ms. Miller has something to say." All eyes turned to Rebecca, who stood frozen behind the reception desk like a deer in headlights. The live streamer adjusted her angle to capture Rebecca's face clearly. 4,000 viewers waited. Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. How was I supposed to? "No," David supplied gently. "You weren't supposed to know who I am, Ms. Miller. You were supposed to treat every guest with basic human dignity regardless of who they are." The words landed like physical blows. But Rebecca tried again, grasping for any lifeline. You weren't dressed like... you looked... I looked like what, exactly? The question hung in the air, unanswerable without revealing the ugly truth everyone already knew. Rebecca Miller, front desk manager, company woman, defender of standards, had no words left. Behind her, the phone at the reception desk began ringing incessantly. News outlets, corporate headquarters, damage control teams mobilizing across the country. The story was already spreading beyond the live stream. Social media algorithms had latched onto the drama, pushing it toward viral status. But in that marble lobby, surrounded by witnesses and cameras, only one thing mattered. A black man in an expensive coat had asked to check into a hotel, and the world had watched what happened next. David Thompson turned to face the assembled crowd, his voice carrying the measured authority of a boardroom presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, you've witnessed something remarkable today. Not just discrimination, but institutional discrimination. The kind that exists in systems, not just individuals. The live stream hit 6,000 viewers. News vans were already en route. Michael Brown stepped forward desperately. Mr. Thompson, perhaps we could handle this privately. Privately? David's eyebrow arched. Ms. Miller made this very public when she sprayed sanitizer in my face and called security. We'll finish it publicly. Rebecca Miller clutched the reception counter, her knuckles white. Please, I have children. I need this job. I made a mistake, .. You made a choice, David corrected calmly. Multiple choices, each one captured on camera and broadcast to thousands of people. Lisa Anderson fumbled with her tablet, pulling up damage control protocols. Sir, we have standard procedures for incidents like... There are no standard procedures for this, David interrupted, because this should never happen. He turned back to the crowd, his voice carrying new weight. Grandview Luxury Hotels generates $1.2 billion annually across 23 properties. We employ 12,000 people. We serve over 2 million guests each year. The numbers hit like hammer blows. Real, specific, undeniable. This single property, your flagship Houston location, represents $276 million in yearly revenue. Nearly a quarter of our entire corporate profits flow through this lobby. Steve Wilson's face had gone ashen. Janet Davis pressed herself against the wall as if trying to disappear. David continued methodically. Under Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, public accommodations cannot discriminate based on race, color, religion, or national origin. The penalty for violations includes federal prosecution, civil lawsuits, and punitive damages. The live streamer zoomed in on David's face. His calm delivery made every word more devastating. Recent precedent includes a $12 million settlement against Hampton Hotels for similar discrimination. Marriott paid $8.5 million for racial profiling incidents. Those cases involved single complaints filed months after the fact. He gestured toward the phones recording everything. This incident has been witnessed by thousands of people in real time. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Rebecca began crying quietly, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Our corporate insurance policies contain strict liability exclusions for discriminatory acts, David continued relentlessly. Claims arising from civil rights violations void coverage entirely. The company bears full financial responsibility. Michael Brown looked physically ill. Sir, what can we do to... You can listen, David said firmly. Because I'm offering 3 options, and you have exactly 5 minutes to choose. The crowd pressed closer. The live stream comments moved too fast to follow. Option 1. Immediate termination of all staff involved, public apology video, voluntary cooperation with federal investigation, estimated cost, $2 million in legal fees, settlements, and reputation management. Rebecca's sob echoed through the marble space. Option 2. Full corporate discrimination audit across all 23 properties, mandatory bias training for 12,000 employees, implementation of new monitoring systems, and establishment of a discrimination response protocol. Estimated cost, $15 million annually. Lisa Anderson's tablet slipped from her shaking hands. Option 3. We let the federal investigation proceed naturally. EEOC files formal charges. Justice Department reviews our hiring practices. Civil rights organizations file class action suits on behalf of previous victims. David's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, making everyone strain to hear. Estimated cost, bankruptcy. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Steve Wilson sank into a lobby chair, his head in his hands. I built this company from nothing, David continued quietly. Started with a single motel in Atlanta 25 years ago. Worked 16-hour days, slept in the office, reinvested every penny. His eyes swept the crowd. I built it to prove something. That excellence has no color. That hospitality means treating every human being with dignity. That success comes from serving others, not excluding them. The live streamer wiped tears from her eyes, still recording. Today, my own employees taught me a different lesson. They showed me that systems I created, policies I wrote, values I embedded in corporate culture, none of it matters if the people implementing them don't share those values. Rebecca Miller's crying grew louder. Ms. Miller, David addressed her directly, you didn't just discriminate against me. You discriminated against every black guest who ever approached that desk with uncertainty, every Latino family who wondered if they'd be welcome, every immigrant who worried their accent might mark them as other. His voice remained steady, but the words cut deep. You didn't see a scammer or a threat. You saw someone who didn't fit your mental image of what success looks like, and you decided they didn't belong. Michael Brown stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, if you'll give us a chance to make this right. I'm giving you exactly that chance, David replied. But understand the stakes. This video has been seen by thousands of people. It's spreading across social media platforms as we speak. News outlets are already calling. Lisa Anderson's phone buzzed continuously with incoming calls. Your response in the next 5 minutes will determine whether Grandview Hotels becomes a case study in corporate accountability or corporate failure. He checked his watch, the Patek Philippe that had seemed so out of place moments ago. You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. The lobby fell silent except for the sound of Rebecca's quiet sobbing and the distant hum of traffic through the glass doors. Michael Brown looked at Lisa Anderson. She looked at Steve Wilson. He stared at the floor. Everyone looked anywhere except at David Thompson, who stood in the center of the marble space like judgment incarnate. The live stream hit 10,000 viewers, and the clock kept ticking. 4 minutes, David said softly. In boardrooms across America, emergency meetings were being called. Crisis management teams were assembling. Stock prices were being monitored. But in the lobby of Grandview Grand Hotel, time was running out on 25 years of building something that could be destroyed in 25 minutes. What's it going to be? David asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. And somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed as news vans raced toward downtown Houston, drawn by the digital wildfire spreading across social media platforms faster than anyone could contain. The reckoning had begun. Michael Brown's voice cracked when he finally spoke. Option 1, sir. We choose option 1. David nodded slowly. Ms. Miller, you're terminated effective immediately. Please surrender your badge and keycard to Mr. Brown. Rebecca's legs buckled. She gripped the reception counter to stay upright. Please, Mr. Thompson. I have a mortgage. I have kids in school. I made a terrible mistake, but... You made a choice, David corrected quietly. Multiple choices over several minutes while being recorded by dozens of people. This wasn't a split-second error in judgment. Lisa Anderson stepped forward with practiced efficiency. Ms. Miller, you'll receive 2 weeks severance pay and COBRA continuation. Security will escort you to collect personal items. Rebecca looked around desperately, seeking support from her former allies. Janet Davis stared at the floor. Steve Wilson studied his hands. Mr. Wilson, David continued, you're suspended pending full investigation. Your security license will be reviewed by the Texas Department of Public Safety. Steve's shoulders sagged. 20 years of private security work ended by 10 minutes of poor judgment. Ms. Davis, you're demoted to front desk associate, effective immediately. Mandatory sensitivity training, 12-month probation, and performance review every 30 days. Janet opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. She was lucky to keep any job at all. The live stream audience had swollen to 15,000 viewers. Comments poured in faster than the eye could follow. Justice served. This is how you handle discrimination. CEO of the year right here. Finally, some accountability. But David wasn't finished. These individual consequences address today's incident, he announced to the crowd. But the real problem is systemic. What you witnessed here doesn't happen in isolation. He turned to Michael Brown. How many discrimination complaints has this property received in the past 18 months? Michael's Adam's apple bobbed. I'd have to check the files. I'll save you the trouble. 17 formal complaints, 43 informal ones logged through customer service, all dismissed or downplayed. The numbers hit like physical blows. Lisa Anderson pulled up files on her tablet with shaking hands. Sir, we follow corporate protocol for complaint resolution. Corporate protocol failed, David interrupted. Because corporate protocol was designed to minimize liability, not eliminate discrimination. He addressed the crowd again, his voice carrying new authority. Effective tomorrow, Grandview Hotels will implement comprehensive reform across all 23 properties. The announcement sent ripples through the watching crowd. First, zero-tolerance discrimination policy. Any employee engaging in discriminatory behavior faces immediate termination. No warnings, no second chances. Rebecca Miller's quiet sobbing provided soundtrack to the pronouncement. Second, anonymous reporting system accessible to both guests and employees. Independent third-party investigation of every complaint within 72 hours. David's phone buzzed with incoming calls from corporate headquarters, but he ignored them all. Third, mandatory bias training for all employees, from housekeeping to senior management. Monthly refresher courses, quarterly assessments. Annual certification required for continued employment. Janet Davis looked sick. The scope of change was staggering. Fourth, customer service standards complete rewrite. Every interaction monitored. Every guest treated with identical respect regardless of appearance, accent, or perceived economic status. The live streamer adjusted her angle to capture the faces in the crowd. Some nodded approvingly. Others looked shocked by the sweeping nature of the reforms. Fifth, technology integration. AI-powered interaction analysis monitoring all customer touchpoints. Real-time discrimination detection with immediate management alerts. Michael Brown's face went pale. The cost implications were enormous. Sixth, community partnership programs. Local organizations will conduct quarterly mystery shopper evaluations, external oversight to ensure accountability. David's voice rose slightly, carrying to every corner of the marble lobby. These changes will cost approximately $500,000 per property to implement. $12 million company-wide in the first year. Gasps echoed through the crowd. But discrimination lawsuits cost more. Federal investigations cost more. Reputation damage costs more, and moral bankruptcy costs everything. The words landed like hammer blows. Lisa Anderson found her voice. Sir, the board will need to approve expenditures of this magnitude. I am the board, David replied simply. Majority shareholder, controlling interest. These changes are not suggestions. His phone rang. The caller ID showed CNN breaking news desk. He declined the call without hesitation. Mr. Brown, you have 48 hours to begin implementation. Ms. Anderson, I want preliminary bias training protocols on my desk by Friday. Both executives nodded mutely. David turned back to the assembled crowd, many still recording on their phones. To our guests who witnessed this incident, I apologize. You came here expecting hospitality and instead saw discrimination. That failure is mine as the owner of this company. His words carried genuine remorse. To the staff members who participated, your actions today don't just reflect on you personally. They reflect on every employee who works for this company, every guest who chooses our hotels, every shareholder who invested in our success. Rebecca Miller had stopped crying, listening with the hollow expression of someone whose world had just collapsed. To the thousands of people watching online, thank you for bearing witness. Discrimination thrives in darkness. It dies under scrutiny. The live stream comments exploded with support. This man is a legend. Every CEO should watch this. Real leadership in action. Respect earned, not demanded. David checked his watch one final time. The police unit that was called should arrive shortly. I'll explain that the situation has been resolved internally. As if summoned by his words, 2 Houston Police Department officers pushed through the hotel's glass doors, their expressions wary. Officers, David approached them calmly. I'm David Thompson, CEO of this hotel chain. There was a misunderstanding that's been resolved. No criminal charges will be filed. The senior officer looked around the lobby, at the crying woman, the shell-shocked security chief, the crowd of witnesses with phones. Sir, we received reports of a trespassing incident. The only trespass here was against human dignity, David replied quietly. And that's been addressed. The officers exchanged glances, clearly preferring to avoid whatever complicated situation they'd walked into. We'll file a report of unfounded complaint, the senior officer decided. Have a good day, sir. As the police departed, David's phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. Every major news outlet is calling. Stock price up 3% on discrimination response news. Board wants emergency meeting. David silenced the phone again. He had one more announcement to make. Ladies and gentlemen, systemic change requires sustained commitment, not just dramatic gestures. These reforms will be implemented, monitored, and enforced not because they're legally required, but because they're morally necessary. His eyes swept the crowd one final time. Excellence has no color, hospitality knows no boundaries, and dignity is not negotiable. The marble lobby fell silent, except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic. Rebecca Miller was escorted toward the elevator by security, her career at Grandview Hotels ending the same way it had nearly destroyed David's day, with judgment based on appearance rather than substance. But this time, justice had cameras rolling, and the whole world was watching. 6 months later, the Grandview Grand Hotel lobby looked exactly the same. The marble floors still gleamed. The chandelier still cast perfect light. The reception desk still commanded attention with its elegant curves. But everything had changed. David Thompson stood in the exact spot where Rebecca Miller had sprayed sanitizer in his face, watching his transformed staff interact with guests. A young black businessman approached the desk with confidence. The clerk, newly hired, extensively trained, smiled genuinely and processed his reservation without hesitation. No suspicious glances, no extra verification steps, no subtle bias disguised as procedure, just hospitality. The viral video had been watched 57 million times across all platforms. It sparked congressional hearings on discrimination in public accommodations. 3 states passed stronger civil rights enforcement laws. The Harvard Business School now used the incident as a case study in crisis leadership. But the real victory wasn't measured in views or legislation. It was measured in moments like these, when dignity was simply assumed rather than earned. David's phone buzzed. A text from Michael Brown. 0 discrimination complaints across all properties for 127 consecutive days. Employee satisfaction up 34%. Guest loyalty scores at record highs. The numbers told a story of transformation that went far beyond corporate policy. Behind the reception desk, Janet Davis, now 6 months into her probation, helped an elderly Latino couple navigate their reservation. Her Spanish was improving. Her attitude had been completely rebuilt from the ground up. People could change, systems could change, but only when consequences were real and accountability was absolute. The anonymous reporting app had logged over 3,000 submissions in its first 6 months. Most were positive feedback about improved service. The few discrimination complaints were investigated within hours, not months. Transparency bred trust. Trust bred excellence. David's reflection was interrupted by approaching footsteps. A young woman with a phone, the same live streamer who had captured everything that day. Mr. Thompson? I'm Sarah Chen from Channel 2 News. We're doing a 6-month follow-up story. Could we get a quick interview? David smiled. Of course. But let's talk over there, away from the front desk. They're busy serving guests. As they walked toward the seating area, Sarah activated her camera. Mr. Thompson, 6 months ago, this lobby was the scene of a viral discrimination incident. How has your company changed? David considered the question carefully. Sarah, the real change wasn't in our policies or procedures. It was in our commitment to treating every human being as if they matter. Because they do. He gestured toward the bustling lobby. We invested $12 million in bias training, monitoring systems, and cultural transformation. But the most valuable investment was in accountability. When behavior has real consequences, people make better choices. Sarah nodded. Critics say your response was too harsh, that Ms. Miller lost her career over one mistake. Ms. Miller made dozens of choices over 15 minutes, David replied quietly. Each one recorded, each one deliberate. The harshness wasn't in the consequences, it was in the original actions. His voice carried no anger, only certainty. We don't build better companies by excusing bad behavior. We build them by demanding excellence from every person, every day. The camera captured his calm authority, the same presence that had transformed chaos into justice 6 months earlier. What advice would you give to other CEOs facing similar situations? David's answer was immediate. Listen more than you speak. Act faster than you think. And remember that your company's values are only as strong as your weakest moment. As Sarah wrapped the interview, David's phone lit up with a familiar notification. Another viral video was trending this time, showing a hotel manager in Phoenix defending a Muslim family against harassment from other guests. The caption read, "This is how it's done." #Grandview. Standard #dignity for all. The ripple effects continued spreading. That evening, David stood on his office balcony overlooking downtown Houston. The city sparkled below, full of people from every background, every culture, every walk of life. His empire had grown stronger, not weaker, from the crisis. Stock prices reached record highs. Booking rates increased across all demographics. Employee retention hit all-time records. But the real measure of success wasn't financial. It was knowing that tomorrow, when a young black woman approached any Grandview reception desk, she'd be welcomed without question. When an immigrant family with accented English needed help, they'd receive patience and kindness. When anyone who looked different, sounded different, or came from different circumstances sought hospitality, they'd find it. That was the true legacy of 15 minutes that changed everything. David's phone buzzed one last time. An email from a college student in Detroit. Mr. Thompson, I saw your video and decided to major in hospitality management. I want to build hotels where everyone belongs. Thank you for showing me what leadership looks like. He smiled, saving the message with hundreds of others like it. True power wasn't about commanding respect through fear or status. It was about creating systems where respect was simply given, freely and equally, to every human being. The marble lobby 20 floors below continued its quiet work of hosting humanity in all its diversity. The night shift staff trained, monitored, and held accountable carried forward the mission that had emerged from chaos. Excellence had no color. Hospitality knew no boundaries. Dignity was not negotiable. And the whole world was still watching, learning that justice didn't require violence or revenge. It only required the courage to do what was right when everyone was looking, and the commitment to keep doing it when they weren't. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered if you should speak up? Share your story in the comments below. Every voice matters in creating change. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to see that dignity wins when good people refuse to stay silent. Subscribe to Beat Stories for more powerful narratives of ordinary moments that reveal extraordinary character. Because the world needs more leaders who choose justice over comfort, truth over convenience, and humanity over everything else. Your voice, your share, your subscription to Beat Stories. They all matter in building a world where everyone belongs.
Every time someone stands up, speaks out, or refuses to be erased, a new story is born. At Beat Stories, we archive that courage. Subscribe now and help us keep these moments alive, because the more we share them, the harder they are to ignore.